Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Astral Tourist. Today's episode is a compiled retrospective of my Mugwort experiments from 2023 through 2024. I used to call them the Mugwort Matrix. Some of you may have already heard them before. These were originally individual recordings made during lucid dreaming and astral projection practice using mugwort in different forms, including teas, tinctures, and ritual bundles. Over time, I began documenting everything consistently, partly as an experiment in memory training, and partly because some of these experiences were too strange to just trust my waking brain to hold on to correctly. My regular listeners know I always am talking about recording our experiences and reality checking and remembering to remember, to remember, to remember. You got to layer it deep in your brain that you're going to remember. And that's what mugwort can help with, at least for a lot of people. The reason I took those episodes down was because the sound quality was horrible. I had a miserable microphone, and I kept going off on a bunch of tangents because it was earlier in my podcast days. Now I have a better microphone, and I stay on track better for you all. So I hope you enjoy these if you haven't heard them before, and I hope you enjoy them if you did and got bored because of all my tangents. Looking back at all of it together, there's a clear thread running through the entire span of experiences, like layered dream environments, symbolic encounters, shifts in awareness states, and a recurring sense of navigating systems that feel structured, but are still constantly changing. Sometimes it feels like exploration. Sometimes it feels like I'm just trying to figure out which room I'm in. Like, did I really just astral project into my bedroom and get pulled back to my body 3 times kind of thing? And why is there paperwork involved? I've had some experiences where I'm filling out paperwork. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've put the best of everything together, and these are going back to ones I had in 2023. So in 2023, I began experimenting more with mugwort tinctures and dried bundles during a period where I was rebuilding energy and trying to stabilize dream recall and lucid awareness. Before that, I'd had some teas. I don't remember anything too dramatic except a little bit of saturation with colors in my dreams and such. But 2023 was the year I began to really tune in to mugwort itself. So again, at first, nothing dramatic happened when I began this, mostly just deeper sleep and subtle changes in dream recall. But over the course of several nights, something interesting started to build gradually. And that's when I began to realize there's a pattern here, at least for me, with mugwort. And the effect wasn't immediate in this case, but cumulative. And I've spoken about this in some of my other mugwort sharings. So this was the time period when I began to realize that it's cumulative for me. And that's how I got to where I am now, currently in my thinking about it. And, it was just really interesting trying these different forms of mugwort for me. Eventually, the experiences shifted into much more vivid dream states. So this one is a really cool one. The Neon Giant and Waking Synchronicities. So one of the earliest notable experiences I had involving mugwort was when I was entering a neon green environment that felt dreamlike and felt like an astral projection because it was so tangible. My feelings were super heightened and everything. And I encountered this massive green giant-like figure The scene was intense, symbolic, and emotionally charged, with miniature human-like figures contained within a structure within the giant's hand. At the time, I remember actively questioning whether I was observing symbolic dream content, subconscious processing, or something more unusual related to lucid dreaming or astral projection. Now remember, I had already had many years of experience with lucid dreams and astral projections, so my mind is like on fire, wondering out and trying to sort everything out with this new mugwort. So shortly after waking from that experience, I noticed a strange synchronicity involving similar imagery appearing in waking media. I didn't fully interpret it as anything definitive, but it did reinforce the feeling that these experiences were interacting with my perception in interesting ways, let's say. So in another one, coastal regions and lunar dissolution. As the 2023 experiment continued, the environments became more structured and immersive. One sequence involved traveling through luminous coastal regions and island environments that felt unusually stable and emotionally vivid. This was definitely an astral projection, but it was a very heightened one, which I'm going to attribute to the mugwort. There were recurring guide-like figures present, including older women who seemed calm and familiar with the environments, almost as if they were used to people like me showing up kind of slightly behind schedule. They kept giving me this idea that I was, behind schedule, trying to catch up. In one of the more memorable sequences, I arrived at a lighthouse on what felt like an Italian island. The space felt symbolic but grounded, deeply grounded, with stone architecture and a strong sense of quiet presence. From there, the experience expanded into panoramic lunar imagery and then into full immersion in ocean water. At a certain point, the sense of separation from the environment dissolved completely, and it felt less like observing water and more like becoming part of it. And I just remember my senses were just so heightened, and I was just so enjoying it, and like, wow, I can really feel the water. So after waking, I looked into mugwort's historical associations and found references to lunar symbolism and dream-related traditions, like shamanism and such, which added another layer of curiosity to the experience. It seems to be a very lunar herb. Or not an herb, lunar plant. Maybe it is an herb, I don't know. I would have to look that up again. But it's very lunar, whatever you want to call it. So moving on, this section of my notes is labeled Unstable Architecture and Space Archaeology. So other 2023 experiences involved more fragmented travel-like sequences through mall-like environments, layered cities, and large buildings with unusual architecture. Elevators behaved inconsistently, stairs felt unstable. Multi-layered and group travel dynamics were common. I was having a lot of what's now known as mall world experiences back then. So in one case, while I was taking mugwort again, there was even mention of Iceland as a destination or transitional location. Through the context, it felt unclear though, maybe like Iceland, let's say. Trying to follow directions in a dream or an astral projection where the map keeps rewriting itself, like you're trying to go somewhere and then the directions keep shifting and you've got to keep up. So again, with this keeping up feeling, that's recurring with the mugwort for me back then. That was, it's not lately, but back then I kept feeling like I had to keep up with it. So across these experiences, there was a consistent sense of moving through these structured environments without fully understanding the rules. Like, in my mall world experiences, I know the rules and stuff, like in a basic way. But the mugwort, again, is adding more depth to the experience. And with it, I understand that there are things that I don't understand. It just makes me more aware of that. And the heightened lucidity is a great stabilizing factor for me in that way. So in one of the more unusual 2023 sequences, that involved a moon-like environment where humanoid miners were excavating something large and fragile from a cratered terrain. As I observed more closely, I realized they were uncovering a massive fossilized winged being that had been embedded in the stone. This site was incredible. I mean, I put it in part of the thumbnail here for this episode, but it doesn't do it justice. The scale does not do it justice. The scene felt like space archaeology, careful, precise, and strangely reverent. The main reaction at the time was essentially, apparently even space has group projects and nobody trusts me to hold the equipment. I made that note that, so I was trying to interact with these folks and they didn't want me to touch anything. So, yeah. But it still was quite a sight to see. Oh my goodness. So later there was a sequence involving travel through star systems and arriving in a structured library-like interplanetary environment. Communication required a translator device, even on the astral plane. And at one point I had to identify myself as being from Earth in very explicit terms. Like I had to tell them what Earth meant and how small it was and we're far away from, the center of our galaxy and the fringes and all of this. And it felt oddly bureaucratic given the scale of the setting. Some of these memories are elusive now, even just, 3 years later. So I'm really happy that I got all this down. The environment included layered spaces, beings in stasis, that's right, and a strong impression of vast systems operating far beyond human scale reference points. And that hasn't been the first time I've seen beings in stasis, and not just in outer space. I had this one astral projection years ago, not having to do with mugwort, where I was in some kind of a facility and these people were in some kind of, I don't know if they were cryogenic chambers or what. I don't even know where I was back then, but I don't want to get too off the subject, and I don't want to go onto a tangent there. So we'll just keep moving on here. So now we're going to move ahead into 2024, where I did a couple of episodes, but not as extensive as I did in 2023. And at the time I called this Mugwort Matrix 2.0 because I was hoping to have more experiences. I didn't have as many experiences as before, but my life was really busy and that factors in. So I'm just going to share what I did put down. So in 2024, I continued working with mugwort in multiple forms. I believe back then it was tinctures and teas from one of the bundles that I had bought, while placing more emphasis on consistency, memory training, and structured documentation. Again, you got to, write it all down just to get your brain in the habit of doing it and rehearse it over and over again. Tell yourself what happened, and your memory will get much better at this stuff. I promise you. So at this point, I had a better sense that Mugwort wasn't, controlling anything. I never thought that it was, but for some reason I put that in there. For me, it's more of an enhancer. And here it says, it did seem to increase vividness, emotional intensity, and ease of transition into lucid or semi-lucid states. So that has been consistent for me. Others may have different experiences. I'm just sharing my own experiences here. So next, I have written weather shifting and exit sensations. One of the recurring themes in 2024 with the Mugwort was environmental shifting. In one experience, I exited through a window directly into a storm system, which my regulars know I love a good storm in the astral, and found that I could move between different weather states. So again, there's like this kind of time shifting happening. And so I guess I'm learning to keep up better with the Mugwort by then. I don't know. I have it here, rain, snow, wind, by shifting intention and attention. Now this is in the astral, which is different than lucid dreaming where things shift easily. So I was really getting a handle on, I guess, small incrementalized time shifts then. Each change felt like moving between different layers of reality. Well, that was because I was. So at one point, I was fully immersed in rain and snow sensations across my entire perception. That's right. My whole energy body was feeling both because of the way I was like shifting between them, which was both beautiful and slightly overwhelming. I'm not sure I really meant overwhelming, but I might have. I don't remember anymore. But I love that kind of stuff. So for me, even that kind of overwhelming is good. So I had it like nature had turned up the immersion settings all the way up. Well, the nature of Mugwort had. There were also multiple out-of-body exit sensations that varied in style. Sometimes it felt like floating above the body. This is like pre-exit stuff and just exit stuff. Other times it felt like being pulled or released through the lower body. Occasionally I would stay too close to the physical body on purpose and notice what felt like a kind of protective boundary or buffer zone around the room. So with the Mugwort dial turned up there, I was just playing around with staying closer to my physical body. And normally that is not the right advice. Get out, get going, make the distance from your physical body. So I was just experimenting here. And so I interpreted this as a stabilizing mechanism. And I was just, seeing how far can I push this with the Mugwort. Because usually I get pulled right back in if I stay too close to my physical body. So it did help me last a little longer that way. But I don't recommend really doing that. It's just me, messing around. One consistent lesson, here I made the note again, was lingering too close to the physical body. Made it easier to snap back into waking awareness. So I snapped back quicker, actually. So I know that seems diverse, but it's like Mugwort turns this, the sensations up. It can feel longer. It can feel faster. It's a little bit of a chaotic, but not super chaotic. And so it says here, I began intentionally moving further away during transitions to maintain stability. So again, I was just messing around. seeing how far I could push that mugwort and the closeness to my physical body after I had astral projected. And so, things were feeling fast and slow and stuff, but that was because of the mugwort in that case. Next, I have overlapping realities and hyper-vivid senses. Another set of experiences involved blended or overlapping realities. These often looked like modern neighborhoods mixed with older historical layers. In one case, I observed a 1950s style environment where people were simply going about their day without acknowledging my presence. I found this pretty reasonable. If someone suddenly appeared in your town floating above the ground, ignoring them is probably the right social strategy. And also, a lot of times I'm not very well seen because I go into like a misty form. And I guess I didn't mention that in my notes here, but that was probably why I wasn't seen. One of the more structured 2024 experiences involved a large metaphysical library-like environment filled with tall shelves and crystals. I was accompanied by a group of figures dressed in Viking-style clothing, and the environment felt organized and almost ceremonial. Here I was served simple food, bread and butter, which stood out not because of the complexity, but because of how intensely real the taste and sensory clarity were. It felt more vivid and unusually grounding, because grounding more into that astral plane, even though it was like a higher plane in one of these wonderful libraries. The impression it left was something like a reminder toward simplicity and stability, though I didn't push too hard on interpreting it at the time. Now, this next one is one of my favorites. I call it offerings and conditional access. It sounds boring for such an amazing encounter, but I attempted a symbolic contact with the nature spirit of the mugwort I was using at the time. I was trying to connect with the deva, or the deva-like intelligence of the plant, or the overall plant being. And in my mind and my imagination, as I was falling asleep, I was making specific intentions to connect with the mugwort deva, the specific one connected to the mugwort bundle of dried leaves I'd been using at the time. And so the way I was doing this was I was doing some meditation, and I decided to present offerings, special offerings to the deva, the mugwort deva, if there was one. I didn't even know if there would be, but sometimes there is with particular plants, and sometimes there's not, or they don't care to show up. Plant devas I've found can be very shy and not all that interested in humans, but they love attention. So I thought if I go overboard and I make tons of mental offerings and everything, maybe I can at least meet it or see it or glimpse it or something. They're a lot like the fairy folk in some ways, but they're more nature beings than fairies. They're not really fairies, I don't think. It depends on your terminology, really, but I consider them to be different myself. So I was making a big deal in my mind about the offerings and putting them out there. I was creating mental images of crystals, various musical instruments, like a musical offering or a crystal offering, and also symbolic objects. Now, I was practicing the 21 Taras at the time, even back then. So one of the things I did was I remembered that mugwort is a lunar plant. So I was like remembering that one of the 21 Taras has a moon quality to her that's profound. So I was like stitching a really particular pillow with a big moon on it that shone light out of it and stuff. I just wanted to do a really good job because, deities love attention and, I should say devas. This isn't a deity, I don't think, in a specific sense. It's more of a plant deva. And so a non-human nature entity did appear briefly and was looking around at the offerings. Now, by then I had fallen asleep. It was kind of like a dreamlike and astral at the same time. I'm not sure that I actually left my body, my physical body, but my astral body was definitely alive and tingling. Okay, so here is this nature being, and he looked like he had plant parts coming out of him everywhere, but he was also dressed semi-human style with some raggedy clothes and stuff. Some were a little bit brownish green and all of this. And the first thing he was looking around and he said, "Is all of this for me?" Like he wasn't sure that it was for him. And I was so surprised I got the attention of a deva. So I was like, yes, it's all for you. Really, it is. And I told him I didn't know what he might like, so I was trying all of this different stuff, and hoped he would like something out of it, or he could have all of it. It was up to him. So he chose the pillow with the intricate stitching I'd done with the big moon on it. So again, with this lunar quality of mugwort. And that's the only thing he wanted. So he nodded at me and took the pillow and he was gone. Like that fast. It was super fast. But it was that profound at the same time. Like, I saw the deva. And he picked the thing I think that I put the most energy into that matched the quality of mugwort itself. So that was just, if I had to pick a favorite one, that's got to be up there. I did not get to ask him any questions or anything. Like, he just wanted to make sure it was, for him. And then he was gone. So, yeah. So I have another one here. There was also a mountain region experience resembling a crowded Himalayan or Mount Kailash-like environment. So I love to go to the Himalayas to fly around. Anyway, I attempted to gain altitude for a broader perspective, it says here, but another figure interfered and physically disrupted the movement, pulling me back down. So sometimes we have these troublemakers in the astral that want a free ride. I don't remember more about that right now. So across both 2023 and 2024, the pattern is pretty consistent. These experiences involve repeated exploration of layered environments, shifts in perception, symbolic encounters with guide-like figures, and ongoing attempts to stabilize awareness across transitions between waking and non-waking states. I still have my actual logs that are long and drawn out, but I think this sums it up way better. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a little something about mugwort. I also have a playlist now with all my mugwort experiences and some with galantamine. So I will put that in the description. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. Lots of love around the world and happy astral travels.